Hi, babes. Welcome back to the Self-Worth Club podcast. This is a space for women who want more freedom, more joy, more alignment with who they really are, beyond labels and expectations. I hope you're in the right place. Today, we are diving into what it means to rediscover your identity beyond those labels that society places on us and that we place on ourselves. Because as important as these roles and titles might be, they really don't capture the whole of you, and they definitely don't define your worth. Think about the last time someone asked you to tell them about yourself. What was the first thing you said? Give you a sec. For most of us, we lead off with our job title, right? I'm an entrepreneur, I work in finance, or maybe you answer with, I'm a mom, I have 3 kids, right? We lean on these labels so heavily that they start to feel more like the entirety of who we are. We don't know how else to answer. But what if I asked you to describe yourself without mentioning your job, your role, or any of those labels that you wear every single day? Who would you be then? Sometimes we voluntarily label ourselves, and sometimes society labels us, right? When we do it, that labeling can act as a compass to our values. But when someone else does it, a label can really place us into a tight little box that we never wanted to be in the first place. Labels filter what we hear and can even shape the reality that we see. Like I said, they often box us in, right? Shaping how other people see us, how we see ourselves. But what if those labels are misleading or even completely wrong? Imagine this. You hear a profound, life-changing piece of advice. It sounds super great in the moment. But then you realize that it's coming from a child or from a friend who's always been the class clown and never had their together. Would you take it as seriously? Probably not. Or let's say you're listening to a motivational speech, and instead of it coming from a well-known speaker, it's coming from someone who doesn't necessarily fit the typical image of success. Would it resonate with you in the same way? Sometimes when things or people are presented differently, we suddenly start to see their true value. And letting go of labels really helps us open up to the possibilities that we might have dismissed before when they were there. It really invites us to discover our own identity without the limits that we've unconsciously set for ourselves or accepted from other people. So when I say labels, I'm not just talking about obvious ones, like your job title, your relationship status. I'm talking about the roles, titles, expectations that get woven into how we see ourselves. These are the things that society, family, teachers, even us, have come to accept as truths about who we are. Think about it. Mother, entrepreneur, perfectionist, overachiever. These words all carry so much weight with them. They carry expectations. Some spoken, some unspoken. They might feel natural, like they're just a part of you, but what if they don't? What if some of these labels are just layers that you've picked up along the way and you never really stop to think about it? You just let them be you because that's what other people told you. It's kind of crazy to think about. So here's where labels get a little bit sneaky. We might think we know who we are, but the labels that we wear, they're not just words. As the years go on, they subtly shape our self-worth, our behavior, and even our choices, often in ways we don't really realize. When you start accepting labels without really questioning them, you might end up living out someone else's expectations instead of your own. You build a life around that version of yourself that other people told you you were. And it might not even be truly who you are or feel good. And the hard part is, a lot of the time, we don't even realize it's happening until it's deeply ingrained. A lot of it happens in the beginning of our life, too. Like, when I was younger, my parents always called me stubborn. Just talked about how stubborn I was. To my face, as a way to describe me to other people, in stories. Even now, telling stories, just last weekend when I was with them, like, to other people. Like, they talk about how stubborn I was when I was younger, whatnot. And that was a common descriptor of me when I was younger. And maybe I am, but do you think I would have been even half as stubborn if I didn't constantly hear that as a way to describe me and my personality all growing up? Probably not. They were ingraining that trait, whether they thought about it or not, deeper into my personality, telling me who I was. Or another example. Let's say you're known now as the perfectionist. At work, to your friends, family, and you take that label to heart. Suddenly you start to feel this constant pressure to never make mistakes, to always have it together, to achieve the highest standard in every little thing you do. But is that really you, this anxious person who needs everything to be perfect? Or are you just performing a role that other people have come to expect of you, that they placed on you? And in doing so, are you slowly suffocating, boxing in the more genuine, maybe a little bit messy, very real version of yourself that's underneath? I know it's a lot to take in, but a lot of it's true, right? So, flipping again, if you're in the entrepreneurial or business world, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The labels are endless. Hustler, self-made, boss, go-getter, girl boss. These terms can feel empowering. They can make you feel strong and capable, but they can also be limiting, right? They can trap you in that box, in a certain mindset where you always have to be on, always crushing it, always leveling up. If you're a woman in business, you might feel even more labels stacking up. The world expects us to be strong yet nurturing, ambitious and humble, direct but agreeable, innovative yet practical, and the list goes on. It is a balancing act, and the weight of these labels can make it feel impossible to just be you, you know? Let me ask you this, and you may want to pause to really reflect, even take note of your answer here, like in your phone notes or on a piece of paper, to really get the most out of this episode. But what would it feel like to let go of these labels, even just for a day? To step back from being the boss, being the go-getter, the perfectionist, the mom, and just allow yourself to exist without the pressure of any title or roles. Can you imagine the freedom in that? What does your life look like? What does it feel like? And who are you without all of that pressure? Without other people telling you who you are and how you act? Feel free to rewind, pause that last bit. And once you've done that, let's dive into why all of this really matters. Why rediscovering your identity beyond labels is so important, especially for those of us that wear so many different hats every day. So first, when we over-identify with roles and labels, it can have some serious consequences. I've seen this time and time with my clients, and honestly, like I said, I've been there myself. When we let these labels become who we are, it really is like living in a little box. And eventually it starts to feel smaller and smaller and smaller. Think about it. If you're constantly trying to live up to the label of successful businesswoman or amazing mom, it can really, really quickly turn into burnout, right? There are so many different definitions of success, and this is something we do not talk about often enough. And it changes personally, person to person, and it also changes seasonally, right? There are different times where you want different versions of success for yourself, depending on what's going on in your life, who's in your life. And it's similar with the title of amazing mom or amazing wife, amazing friend. There are so many different versions of you that are needed in each season that might make you that amazing mom, friend, wife, whatever. There's not one right way to be amazing in those roles. And at the same time, I want you to know that even when you have off days, when you just flat out make a mistake, you mess up, you forget something, it doesn't take everything else that you've done throughout your time in that role away. It doesn't take away from that. It doesn't make you any less amazing. You're human. So give yourself some freaking grace. It's so important. Your growth journey, you cannot progress the way you want to without the grace. When you're trying to force yourself into this small little box of impossible standards, you will start to feel like you're running on a treadmill, always chasing some version of success that feels just barely out of reach. And why? To live up to expectations that may not even reflect your true wants and needs. Living through these labels can really make us feel stuck and disconnected from ourselves. We start to lose sight of what we actually want, what actually matters to us in this moment. We become so focused on doing that we forget how to just be. And for a lot of my clients, that's when things start to unravel. They feel this pressure to be everything. Successful in business, present with their family, constantly on, thriving. But all of that pressure just leads to exhaustion and burnout, a sense of being lost, and this cycle that you really don't want to be in or ever find yourself in. So it's really time that we reconnected and reclaim who we are beyond the labels that we pile on. Let's reclaim our self-worth and start living a life that feels truly fulfilling to us as individuals. Because when you know who you are at your core, you don't need a title or a role to determine your value. Your worth is inherent. It is not defined by your income, your work hours, how perfect you strive to be. And I want you to really finally be free of the weight of those expectations. If you know me, that's my thing. I want to help you create a truly fulfilling life in all aspects, and that starts up here. So let me share a story with you to show you what I mean. So I had a client who came to me earlier in the year, and obviously I keep all names anonymous, right? But she was feeling completely burned out. She had poured at this time a couple of years of her life into building successful online business. And somewhere along the way, she started to believe that being successful meant being a successful entrepreneur. In her mind, if her business wasn't thriving, she wasn't thriving. Her life was in shambles. Her sense of worth had become completely tied to how well her business was doing. So when the business hit a rough patch, it felt like her entire identity was falling apart. She started questioning her values, her abilities, and who she was even outside of her business, outside of the work. And she spiraled. That's when she found me, and we started unpacking what was really going on. She began to see that she'd been putting so much of her identity into being successful in business, air quotes around successful if you're not watching the video, that she'd lost sight of everything else that made her who she was, right? And the success that she was defining herself by was a mixture of everyone else's definitions. It wasn't even truly what she craved as success, what felt great to her. And after redefining what success really meant together, bit by bit, I helped her reconnect with the parts of herself that she had put on the back burner for so long. Like her love of art, or her passion for travel, or the natural gift she had for just connecting with other people. It was like rediscovering pieces of herself that she forgot existed. And that is such a beautiful thing. And as she let go of the one-dimensional label of successful entrepreneur, she told me that she felt this sense of freedom, right? A freedom that she hadn't experienced in all of those years of doing business. She rediscovered who she was beyond the business, a multifaceted, powerful, feminine woman with dreams, passions, and worth that really had nothing to do with her business profits. In the end, she started to see herself in a whole new light. Her self-worth wasn't riding anymore on the success or failure of her business. Instead, she recognized that her value wasn't tied to any single thing she did, but it was tied to who she was as a whole person. She didn't need the business to define her anymore. She felt like she was enough just as she was. And, once you feel that, the business will thrive, the personal will thrive. Of course, you're still going to have ups and downs, ebbs and flows in your life, but unlocking that changes the game. And maybe you're feeling this too in different areas of your life. You might be tying your self-worth to being that perfect mom, always needing to have everything together, or the friend who's always there for everyone else, even when you're running on empty. Maybe it's your role in a relationship where you feel like you have to live up to a certain image or expectation that's been placed on you. Whatever it is, I want you to remember that your worth is so much bigger than any one role, title, or expectation. You are a whole person with layers, interests, and values that go way beyond what you do for others and the labels that you've been given. And that's where true fulfillment starts, by embracing all of you, not just the parts that the world expects you to be. So, to wrap it up, I'm going to give you tangible steps that you can take, because it's great talking about shedding the labels. Sounds super nice, but how do we actually do it? What are some things that can just apply? 1, notice the labels you're carrying. Worked on this a little bit in the beginning, but as with so many things, awareness is really that first step. So just start noticing how you describe yourself, what labels you cling to. Ask yourself, what roles or titles do I automatically associate with who I am? And what roles or titles do other people associate with me? You can even ask them, text a few friends, family members. Be honest with it. Maybe you catch yourself thinking, like, I'm the one everyone can count on. Always prepared. That's what people say about me. Or the one who just gets shit done. Right? Whatever it is, write them down. No judgment. It's only you who needs to see it. This is about getting it all out there. Number 2, ask where each label came from. Once you've got these labels down, go a little bit deeper. Where did each one come from? Did you choose it for yourself? Did it come from somewhere else? Maybe your family, always expected you to be the responsible one, or maybe society and social media sold you this idea of what success looked like. When you start to see where the labels came from, it gives you a little bit of distance, right? You start to see them more for what they are, ideas that you might have taken on without even realizing it. That's okay. You're realizing it now. Number 3, redefine your own standards. So this part should feel empowering. You need to ask yourself, if I'm going to carry this label, what does it mean? What does it actually mean to me? Because maybe you do want to carry that label. But if you want to keep successful entrepreneur, that doesn't have to mean that you define it by hustling 24/7, sacrificing your personal life, answering emails at the dinner table, taking calls on the weekends. Success could mean working on projects that deeply matter to you, taking breaks when you need them, still having a life outside of work, dinners and evenings phone free, helping even just one new client a month. What does that label mean to you specifically? What feels good? It's up to you to redefine these roles in a way that feels real and authentic and fulfilling to you, not just what you think they're supposed to mean. Number 4, reconnect with passions and parts of you that you've put aside. So think about the things that light you up. The stuff that you've set aside while you were busy trying to live up to all those labels. Is there a hobby you used to love, or something that just makes you feel great? Maybe it's painting, hiking, dancing, singing, whatever it is. Start small with it. You don't need to overhaul everything in your life, but make a little space for those parts that remind you there's more to you than just work or whatever role you're caught up in right now. Number 5 is practice letting go of labels in conversations. This can be really fun. Next time someone asks you, so what do you do? Try answering with something that's not just about work. Maybe talk about what lights you up, or something you're exploring right now, something new you're doing. It might feel a little weird at first, but it is a really powerful way to show up as the whole person you are, not just as a job title or a role you have. And you might inspire that person to think about all of this in a new way too, which can be a really powerful ripple effect. This whole process isn't about tossing out all of the things that you do and the roles that you care about. It's about loosening the grip a little bit so you have more space to be you, because that's where the real freedom comes in that you're craving. When you start to see yourself as more than just a collection of titles and labels, it opens up a whole other world. Suddenly you're not boxed in by what you should be, but you get to define your own worth on your terms, and that's huge. So as we wrap up, I want you to think about the labels that you're holding on to. Which ones feel like they're yours? Which ones feel like they were hand-me-downs you never really wanted? Because at the end of the day, you get to decide what stays and what goes. And you can feel great about it when you do. So that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in to Self-Worth Club. Remember, you're allowed to be whole, be messy, be a complex human being. You're allowed to be more than what everyone else expects of you. So go out there, be true to yourself, and I will see you next Friday. Bye, friends.